If you've been thinking about buying your first interchangeable lens camera, you've probably noticed how confusing the market has become. Every camera seems to promise more megapixels, faster burst shooting, better autofocus, or even 8K video. And before you know it, you're comparing spec sheets instead of figuring out what you actually need. The truth is, your first camera isn't really about the camera body at all. It's about choosing the right system. Because once you buy into a brand, you're also buying into its lenses, accessories, and upgrade path. Get that decision right, and almost any modern camera will serve you well for years. Get it wrong, and upgrading later can become a very expensive mistake. So in this video, we're going to break down everything you actually need to know before buying your first interchangeable lens camera. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is thinking they're only buying a camera body. In reality, you're buying into an entire ecosystem built around a specific lens mount. Canon uses the RF mount, Nikon has Z mount, Sony uses E mount, Fujifilm has X mount, while OM System and Panasonic share the Micro Four Thirds mount. Why does that matter? Because lenses stay with you much longer than camera bodies do. A camera body might get replaced every few years, but a good lens can easily last a decade or more. That's why experienced photographers usually invest more in lenses than camera bodies. So instead of asking which camera body takes the best photos, ask yourself which system offers the lenses you'll actually want to own a few years from now. That single decision will probably have a bigger impact on your photography than the camera body itself. The next decision is sensor size, and unlike many of the specs you'll see online, this one actually matters. For most beginners, APS-C is easily the sweet spot. It gives you excellent image quality, strong low light performance, and plenty of background blur while keeping both cameras and lenses reasonably affordable. Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm, and Sony all offer excellent APS-C cameras, and for most people, it's the smartest place to start. Full-frame cameras certainly have their advantages. They perform better in low light and offer even more control over depth of field. But they're also much more expensive, not just the bodies, but the lenses too. We see this happen all the time. Someone spends almost their entire budget on a full-frame body and then has to settle for an average kit lens because there's no money left. In many cases, a good APS-C camera paired with a quality lens actually ends up being the better overall setup. Micro Four Thirds is another option that's often overlooked. While the smaller sensor gives up a little low light performance, it offers some major benefits like incredibly compact cameras, lightweight lenses, excellent image stabilization, and a huge selection of affordable used lenses. If portability is one of your biggest priorities, it's definitely worth considering. Camera companies love advertising big numbers, but many of them simply don't matter for beginners. Megapixels are probably the biggest example. Whether your camera has 20, 24, or even 26 megapixels isn't going to suddenly make your photos better. The same goes for extremely fast burst shooting if you're not constantly photographing sports or wildlife. Video specs can also be misleading. Features like 6K recording, 10-bit log, or advanced cinema codecs sound impressive, but if your primary goal is learning photography, they shouldn't be the deciding factor. Instead of chasing specs you'll rarely use, focus on features that actually improve your everyday shooting experience. Modern autofocus is probably the biggest one. Subject detection and eye-tracking autofocus have become incredibly reliable, making it much easier to capture sharp photos of people, pets, and moving subjects. A proper electronic viewfinder is another feature we always recommend. Shooting through a viewfinder is simply more comfortable outdoors than relying on the rear screen, especially in bright sunlight. In-body image stabilization is also nice to have. It's not essential, but it definitely helps when shooting handheld in lower light or using slower shutter speeds. Finally, don't overlook ergonomics. A camera that feels comfortable in your hands and has controls you actually enjoy using will encourage you to shoot more often. This is where different camera brands really begin to separate themselves. Sony's E-mount and Fujifilm's X-mount currently have some of the strongest third-party lens support. Companies like Sigma, Tamron, and Viltrox offer a huge variety of affordable lenses, giving you plenty of upgrade options without spending a fortune. Canon and Nikon both produce excellent cameras with fantastic autofocus and image quality, but their APS-C lens selections are still a bit more limited. The good news is that third-party support has been improving, especially recently. Before buying any camera, we always recommend looking beyond the kit lens. Think about the next 2 or 3 lenses you might eventually want. Maybe it's a portrait lens, an ultra-wide for landscapes, or a telephoto for wildlife. If those lenses aren't available or they're way outside your budget, you may want to reconsider the system before making the purchase. Buying new is definitely the easiest option. You get the latest autofocus, a full warranty, and the confidence that your camera hasn't been abused. That said, buying used can save you a surprising amount of money. Cameras that are only a generation or 2 old often deliver nearly the same image quality at a much lower price. The same goes for lenses, where some of the best deals can be found on the used market. Our advice is simple. If you're buying used, stick with reputable camera dealers that inspect and warranty their equipment. The money you save can often be invested in a much better lens instead. If there's one piece of advice we hope you remember from this video, it's this: prioritize your lens over your camera body. The camera body determines convenience, autofocus, and handling, but the lens plays a much bigger role in image quality, sharpness, low light performance, and the overall look of your photos. A modest camera paired with a sharp prime lens will often outperform an expensive flagship body using an average kit zoom. Kit lenses are perfectly fine for learning, but adding a quality prime lens later will usually have a much bigger impact than upgrading your camera body. If you're leaning toward Canon, the EOS R50 remains one of the easiest recommendations for beginners, while the EOS R100 is a solid option if you're working with a tighter budget. The EOS R10 is another great step up if you want faster performance. For Nikon, the Z50 stands out thanks to its excellent autofocus, comfortable handling, and processor borrowed from Nikon's higher-end cameras. Sony users looking to start with full frame should consider the A7 IV or the more compact A7C II. Both offer excellent image quality and access to one of the strongest lens ecosystems available today. If you prefer Fujifilm, the X-T30 remains one of the best cameras for learning photography, thanks to its traditional controls, while the smaller XM5 is a great hybrid option if you don't mind giving up the electronic viewfinder. And for those who value portability above everything else, the OM System OMD EM10 Mark IV continues to be one of the best micro Four Thirds cameras for beginners. At the end of the day, almost every modern interchangeable lens camera is capable of taking incredible photos. The biggest difference isn't the camera itself, it's whether you choose a system that can grow with you over time. So don't get caught up chasing megapixels or flashy marketing specs. Focus on the lens ecosystem. Choose the sensor size that fits both your budget and your shooting style, and invest in lenses that you'll still enjoy using years from now. Do that, and your first camera won't just be a good purchase, it'll be the foundation of a system you can keep building for a very long time. That's all for today. We'll see you in the next one.